Zone adjustment number 2. Add the short corners as spots.
The second adjustment involves the short corners. Emphasize to your players that the short corners, which are on the baseline behind the zone, are places where cutters can stop. The zone can be attacked from behind in this manner. If a player receives the ball in this position and there's no chance to score, point out that it's like a baseline drive. All the same windows should be filled by his teammates. The opposite corner, 45 degree, 90 degree up the line, and the safety valve.
Zone adjustment number 3. Penetrate and pitch even more.
Dribble penetration is exactly the same as it is against a man-to-man. Many coaches use the terminology attack the gaps, and that's fine. But doesn't this boil down to attacking the defender in front of you one-on-one, just like against a man-to-man? But now, with the read and react habits, our players will circle move and slide into their predetermined positions the same way they do against a man-to-man. The only adjustment that's needed is to point out to the players that in a zone, the help defense is already in position, waiting to stop their penetration. That fact shouldn't stop penetration, it ought to encourage it. Penetrate against the zone and you're almost guaranteed 2 defenders playing the ball, sometimes 3. That's going to leave a lot of teammates open, and they're going to be in the same familiar windows as they were against a man-to-man.
Zone adjustment number 4. The safety valve advantage.
While we're talking about dribble penetration, it's important to point out another weakness of zones that we can take advantage of. Each defender in a zone has a zone area for which he alone is responsible. Let me illustrate how that's a weakness. If our ball handler tries to penetrate the gap, or to use read and react terms, penetrate north-south, the zone defender in that area goes with the ball handler. But because of our circle movement habits, we have a safety valve circling into the spot behind the penetrator. My question is, who covers the safety valve? Isn't the safety valve in the same zone area as the defender of the ball? How can that defender cover 2 players at once? He can't. And if the closest zone defender rotates to pick him up, then we have the zone being stretched out of its comfort zone. Each pass from that point on forces defensive rotation until the zone is out of shape. At that point, good things will open up for the offense.
Zone adjustment number 5. Pin and skip.
The pin and skip might be the best single weapon against any zone. And if you've implemented the previous section against a man-to-man, then all it takes to use it against a zone is to point out the following to your players. All zones are ready-made for the pin and skip. Regardless of the zone formation, when the ball is on one side of the floor, 2 weak side defenders will appear on the other side. One of them will be low, protecting the weak side basket, and the other will be high. Their positions might vary a little bit depending on the type of zone or the team running it, but they'll be there, and one of them will be begging you to pin screen him. Put 2 pin and skips back to back and watch the zone lose its shape. Or how about pin and skip, catch, penetrate, pin and skip. As soon as the zone begins to chase your players, dribble penetration opportunities will become available. You don't have to have 5 great 3-point shooters on the floor to beat a zone. That's a myth, although I probably wouldn't turn them down.
Attacking zones with a familiar continuity of options.
Now, I know for many of you, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. As an example, I've heard coaches in clinics talk about creating gaps in the zone and training their players to penetrate those gaps. My question was always, then what? If the penetrator makes it to the goal, great. But what if he doesn't? What then? Try to beat 2 or 3 defenders? Force a shot against numbers? Hope your teammates move intelligently into open spots in order to bail you out of trouble? This is where the same man-to-man read and react habits come back to help you against zones. The read and react habits complete the missing parts in this picture. A player can penetrate and know exactly where all of his or her teammates will be. If the penetrator passes the ball, then he knows where to go. He can remain in the seams of the zone and look for the ball, or he can set a pin screen on the weak side, or he can field to an open spot on the perimeter or the short corner. The read and react system provides a confident continuity of options for your players. As long as they don't turn the ball over, there's almost no way to screw it up.
Final zone offense thoughts.
I've seen a lot of good zone offense principles during my 25 years in coaching. Make the zone shift and then reverse sides of the floor. Dribble, stretch a zone defender and throw back where you came from. Have an alternating current with your passing. Pass, pass, hold and look. Pass, pass, hold and look, etc. Get the ball to your best attacker and passer in the seam of the zone. Overload one side of the zone. Attack from the baseline. Dribble, drag out of the corners and throw back to the short corner. Flash into the seams after the zone shifts, not as the zone shifts. Attack the gaps, pitch, and make the extra pass. All of these are good, but if your players are playing by read and react habits, you'll see each of these principles happen at some point in time, whether the players know them or not. When they happen, you can point them out, positively reinforce them, and little by little develop the basketball IQ of your players.
There are no new three-man drills for this layer. All needed habits were installed in previous layers. Layer 16. Seamless transition from fast break to secondary break to half-court offense.
This section is optional, of course. Drilling for a seamless transition is not necessary to take advantage of the read and react system. And that's why I put this chapter near the end. It's icing on the cake, so to speak. But for me, this fits philosophically. Even though we coaches must break the game down to its smallest parts in order to teach the fundamentals, shouldn't our goal be to tie everything back together? And shouldn't that bundle include our transition game? You'll have to see the video on read and react drills to get each step of the build-up, but here's the general idea. As I stated in the beginning, my goal is to have your team's transition game fold seamlessly into the half-court offensive game without a pause, without the defense knowing where one ends and the other begins. This keeps pressure on the defense whether you fast break or not.